Somewhere in your house, a thermostat is doing a job you never think about. It senses the air cooling, and before your skin registers a shiver, a furnace clicks on, and the danger disappears. You step from a heated bedroom into a heated car, and the only cold you feel all day might be the walk across a parking lot. For you, winter is a mild annoyance, a scraped windshield, a bulkier coat, a sunset that arrives too early. For nearly every human before you, winter was something else entirely. It was a season built to end you, attacking from every direction at once. The freezing air could stop your heart, the empty land could starve you slowly, animals in the tree line could hunt you, and the long black nights could unravel your mind before the cold finished the job. So how, with none of your comforts, did anyone survive a single Ice Age winter? Here's a fact that surprises most people. Your body was never built for winter. Every physical trait we carry, thin skin, sparse hair, a metabolism tuned for warmth, evolved under the African sun. Take away your jacket and your house, and a human loses heat almost as fast as an animal can lose blood. Within a few unprotected hours in real cold, hypothea sets in. Your fingers stop obeying you, your judgment blurs, your speech slurs. And once your core temperature falls far enough, your organs simply begin shutting down, one by one. There are no thick pelts on our bodies, no blubber, no built-in armor against frost. By pure biology, humans might be the worst-equipped large mammal on Earth for surviving a hard winter. And yet somehow we didn't avoid the cold. We walked straight into it, pushing north into glacial Europe, into the frozen stretches of Siberia, into temperatures that could kill an unprotected body in under an hour. The first answer is fire, but fire has a major flaw. It only heats the side of you facing it, and it doesn't travel. The second you step away to hunt or gather wood, the cold rushes straight back in. What early humans truly needed was a way to carry warmth with them everywhere they went, and that meant inventing real clothing. For a long stretch of history, that simply meant draping a raw animal hide over the shoulders. It helped, but a draped hide leaves gaps at the sides, under the arms, at the neck, every gap a doorway for wind. The real breakthrough came when someone learned to cut hides into shaped pieces and stitch them into fitted sleeves and closed seams, trapping warm air against the skin. But that required a tool most people never think about. A needle with a working eye, ground thin from bone and drilled through with painstaking precision. Archaeologists have pulled needles like this from the ground dating back more than 40,000 years. Clothing solved the daytime cold, but as the sun dropped, a second danger appeared. Where do you spend the night without freezing to death? The obvious answer is a cave, and caves genuinely helped, holding a steady temperature and blocking the worst of the wind and snow. But here's what most people never consider. Good caves were rare. A dry, defensible cave in exactly the right spot might not exist anywhere near you, and if one did, other hungry, cold groups wanted it just as badly. You couldn't build a strategy around finding a cave, because most winters there wasn't one waiting for you. If you wanted shelter, in almost every case you had to build it yourself from whatever the land happened to offer, which, some of the coldest, most barren stretches of the Ice Age world, meant no trees, no usable stone, nothing familiar at all, and that forced early humans into one of the strangest, most resourceful engineering solutions in our history. In a site called Mezirik, in modern-day Ukraine, archaeologists uncovered the remains of shelters built around 15,000 years ago in a landscape with almost no timber and almost no stone. So the people there built homes from the one raw material available in massive supply, the bones of mammoths. Dozens of skeletons were stacked, interlocked, and arranged into round, dome-shaped huts, heavy jawbones layered like shingles across the roof, massive curved tusks arched over the doorways like frames. These weren't quick, disposable shacks thrown up overnight. They were serious, engineered structures, planned out and built to survive a brutal season of storms and sub-zero cold, and the effort didn't stop at the walls. At a separate site in South Africa, researchers found evidence of bedding made from carefully layered grasses and leaves, dating back an almost unbelievable 77,000 years. Long before humans had even left Africa, they were already thinking about comfort and the small details that made a hard night survivable. Now picture that mammoth bone hut for a second. Bones don't fit together perfectly, so every joint between them is a gap, and every gap is an open invitation for wind. So early builders sealed them, one layer at a time. They stretched animal hides across the inside walls and pinned them tight over every opening. They cut heavy blocks of sod and packed them against the outside surfaces. Some groups even piled snow directly against their shelters on purpose, because a thick layer of snow actually traps air extremely well, and trapped air holds heat far better than most people expect. Layer by layer, gap by gap, the wind slowly ran out of places to get through. A shelter at that point wasn't just a pile of walls anymore. It had become a real system, capable of keeping a family alive through nights that, by every reasonable measure, should have killed them. But a warm shelter created a brand new problem of its own, one that would define the rest of an entire winter. To keep a fire burning through months of winter, you need constant fuel, which means someone has to keep stepping back out into the cold, again and again, just to gather wood. That ties an entire group to one location. You can't simply wander in search of food, which means your food supply either has to be close by or it already has to be stored. And that brings us to the threat that likely killed more ancient humans than any other: hunger. In winter, the natural world essentially stops producing food. Plants die back or freeze solid. Berries disappear completely. Roots become nearly impossible to dig out of frozen ground. Many animals migrate away, vanish into hiding, or grow so lean and desperate that hunting them barely pays off. For a hunter-gatherer, winter isn't only cold. It's a season where the land itself quietly stops feeding you, turning survival into a brutal math problem. Gather enough during the warm months, or starve slowly during the cold ones. So ancient humans became remarkably skilled at storing food long before it was needed, using methods that still work today. The first was drying. Slice meat into thin strips, let it dry in open sun or over the low smoke of a fire, and the moisture that would normally cause rot disappears entirely. Dried this way, meat could last for months without spoiling. The smoke added a second layer of preservation on top of the drying, killing bacteria while sealing in flavor. A rack of meat drying in the autumn air was, in every practical sense, a group's insurance policy against starving by the middle of a long, hard February. The second method used winter itself as a tool. Frozen ground works like a natural freezer. Dig a pit down into the permafrost, pack it with meat from a successful hunt, and the cold holds that food edible for an extraordinarily long stretch of time. The very season trying to starve a group became the exact thing preserving the food that would keep them alive. But the single most valuable food in winter wasn't meat at all. It was fat. When a body burns enormous amounts of energy just to stay warm in freezing conditions, lean meat alone can't keep up with the demand. Fat is the most concentrated fuel source that exists, and in the depths of a hard winter, it was worth more than almost anything a group could gather. Ancient humans rendered animal fat down into tallow, a stable, storable, unbelievably energy-dense substance that kept for a long time without spoiling. They mixed that rendered fat with dried meat to create a dense, portable food packed with an enormous number of calories in a small, easy-to-carry package. In a season where every single calorie mattered, fat quietly became the difference between a group that survived to see spring and one that quietly didn't make it. Warmth, shelter, and stored food solved 3 of winter's 4 death sentences. But one threat remained, and it wasn't aimed at the body at all. It was aimed straight at the mind. The further north you traveled, the shorter the days became and the longer the nights stretched, sometimes down to only a handful of usable daylight hours, followed by 15 or 16 hours of total darkness. You couldn't travel far in that. You couldn't hunt safely in it. You were stuck in a cramped shelter with the exact same small group of people, night after night after night, for months. And that kind of prolonged confinement can wear down a mind in ways that cold and hunger never quite managed to. But here's what ancient humans actually did with those long, dark hours. They didn't just endure them, they filled them completely. It became workshop time, repairing tools, shaping new spear points, mending torn clothing, twisting plant fiber into cordage, carving small objects by firelight. And it became something more than work, too. Around that fire in the dark is where the older members of a group passed everything they knew down to the younger ones, where stories got repeated night after night, carrying a group's entire memory forward. A huge share of human culture itself was forged in exactly these long, dark, freezing nights. Step back now and look at the whole picture at once, because something remarkable comes into focus. The pressure of the cold is what pushed early humans to invent fitted, sewn clothing. The scarcity of caves is what pushed them to invent real architecture, built from whatever the land provided, even the bones of mammoths. The gap where food should have been is what pushed them to invent drying, freezing, and rendering, ways of storing a season's worth of survival. And the long, punishing darkness is where an enormous share of human culture itself was quietly born. Nearly every technology that eventually let our species spread into every climate on the planet was forged under the exact same pressure, staying alive through winter. The hardest season on Earth didn't just fail to wipe us out, it made us far more capable than we had any right to be. Winter came at your ancestors with 4 separate weapons at once. The cold answered with fire and fitted clothing. The night answered with shelters built from whatever the land offered, even mammoth bone. The hunger answered with drying, freezing, and rendered fat that could carry a group for months. And the darkness answered by turning the longest nights into the classroom where human culture began. Every single winter was a test that plenty of people did not pass. And now look at you, turning a dial, walking into a warm room, opening a door to food grown on the other side of the planet in the dead of December, never once feeling the specific fear of watching the first snowfall and wondering if you stored enough to see spring. You don't survive winter anymore. You barely notice it, and that's only because 100,000 years of freezing, starving, and huddling in the dark slowly figured out how to beat it, one invention at a time, so that you never would have to.